once again to another edition of Quick Trivia with Mike. It's the weekly quiz show right here on channel 955 where we test your knowledge of facts. Sometimes a little bit more historic in nature, sometimes very contemporary. Hopefully they're always a lot of fun.
Of course.
That's the key to the show. I am your host and the quizmaster, Mike Brever, and I'm joined today by my very, very special guest host, Gretchen Schumacher. Hello, Gretchen. How are you?
Good. Doing great. Excited to be here.
Wonderful. Well, you know, hopefully we're going to learn a little bit more about what you do here at East Castle,
Sure.
and maybe you'll have some fun with the trivia also.
Of course, always.
Excellent. However, before we get into all of that, we have a new tradition here at Quick Trivia with Mike.
All right.
And I know you're a regular viewer of the show. This is our 118th show.
Yeah.
And so you've seen them all, I know.
Yeah.
Committed them to memory. But what's the new tradition, you know?
What, birthdays?
Yes! Birthdays of the week! Very good! Excellent! You know, you're the very first guest host who actually knew that. I'm very pleased and proud.
I saw the balloons.
You saw it on here.
I
All
saw
right.
the balloons.
All right. But, at any rate, on July 13th, Joe Schmidt is celebrating her birthday.
Oh.
Isn't that great?
Happy birthday, Joe.
Yes, happy birthday. On July 19th, we have Hank Herzing is celebrating his birthday. Hank. Now, usually we have about 4 or 5, but that's all we have this week.
Oh, I got one more.
Okay?
My dog's birthday was on the 11th.
Your dog's birthday was on the
Toro.
11th.
Some of you might know him. Toro, the big bulldog.
There you go. You've actually had your dog here on
Since you were the baby.
Take Your Pet to Work Day, or was it like Service Dog Day or something?
I'd bring
like
him
that?
all the time. Him and his little sister Mochi. He turned 2.
Him and his little sister Moji. I don't know that I've met Moji.
No, well, I'll bring her
I've
in
met
sometime
one
in
of
the
your
future.
2 dogs, right?
Yeah, Toro.
Toro.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And that's a good way to come into work once in a while, right?
Yeah, of course.
Did the residents love Toro?
Oh gosh, yeah. Everybody thinks he looks like a big tiger. He's got orange fur with black stripes and smushed face, and he's kind of like one of those dogs that's so ugly he's cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, my mother was in hospice for a year and a half. You know, typically hospice is like 6 months.
Yeah.
But then you can graduate and get hospice again, and graduate and get hospice again. She did. One of the amenities that she had from hospice was pet therapy.
Oh yeah, I love that.
And they would bring a dog in for my mom because she had pets her whole life.
Yeah.
And really,
You can really see just like how much it makes a difference.
People light up.
Love it.
Yeah, it's really good. And it's wonderful that East Castle allows that and that you've taken advantage of it.
Yeah, I bring him in by request all the time too. People will be like, will you bring Toro in this week? So.
Bring in
What else
Toro.
have I
That
done,
is
right?
excellent. Just excellent. So, Gretchen, tell us a little about your job here. What is your job title?
So I am the nurse manager. So it's the old assistant director of nursing. So I'm just right under Ashley Drummond. And then there was a position kind of helping out with the floor nurses. They kind of combined those positions and made it one position, the RN manager. And then also I do all the wound care. So I kind of manage all of the wounds that we have up in the health center. And then I help out with assisted living, water tower, and CBRF too. If they've got a wound that they're kind of stuck with, I kind of give my 2 cents.
So a lot.
Yeah.
Virtually everything that has to do with medical care around here, you're involved in it.
Yes. I
But
help interview the new employees. I help with that and training and education, that sort of thing. So.
And in fact, I just grabbed you and asked you to join me as the co-host. What were you doing? Interviewing a potential new employee?
Yes, a new CNA.
Excellent, wonderful. You know, we're always trying to get really good quality people here, and your screening is part of that process, right?
Yes.
Excellent,
Crucial.
wonderful.
Yes.
So now let's take a real world example.
Okay.
My mother-in-law, as you know, broke her hip, and she came here for rehab.
Yes.
Unfortunately, she didn't make it. She was one of those people that just never really rebounded. But what would you have done for a patient like that?
With her hip.
Well, in terms of your role.
Oh, okay. Well, a lot of what I did, like with your mom, I started some IVs for some high dehydration.
Okay.
And, you know, kind of helped with assessing her, relaying the information with changes of condition to the doctor, so that we knew if we had to send her out to the hospital, get from some more advanced care for her. Monitored her wound after she had her hip incision. I monitored her surgical incision to make sure there wasn't any infection going on there.
So you were big picture kind of things.
Yeah, so I kind of oversee the big picture because a lot of the times the nurses are stuck kind of doing those tasks And then me and the rest of the interdisciplinary team can kind of overlook the big picture, the care plan, make sure that all the orders are appropriate, make sure that all the assessments are in place, a lot of auditing, that sort of thing.
All that really fun stuff, huh?
Fun stuff.
All that fun stuff.
Yeah.
So now tell us, this new construction we're going under, it's going to have a dramatic impact on the healthcare services that we provide. Tell us a little bit about why things will be so much better after the construction.
Oh, I think one of the biggest things that's going to be crucial is having the assisted living over in the same building, having that whole health center right in one building there. So a lot less running around for the nurses. I think that some of the times the nurses that go from CBRF and then Water Tower, they're going back and forth. They spend half the shift going back and forth, and it's like, with them being right there, they just have to go down a floor. Or, you know, sometimes we kind of float the team around and they're helping each other out on the different floors, and it's going to be so great to just be able to go up and on the elevator there.
So much more efficient.
Yeah, and good for
time
like
saving.
group activities too. We do
Yeah.
like, you know, sometimes we'll do like bowling and like bag toss with therapy, and everybody can participate that way. So it's going to be
Good.
really fun, I think, you know, and
Good.
great.
Tell me now, we pride ourselves on having, and I think this is a layman's term, but maybe it's a real term, I don't know. We pride ourselves on being a continuum of care, which means people who live in our independent units, as their needs increase, we can address them with the
Right.
services we have on site, correct?
I think that's very unique and special, you know.
I do too.
Especially like if your husband's over in one part of the building or your wife's over in the one part of the building, you know, especially in the winter, you don't have to go outside of the
Yeah.
building. You can just go over and visit, and I think that's crucial.
And we've got, I can think of at least 3, I think, that are in that situation right now. A family doesn't have to relocate. We can provide all the care.
Yeah.
A higher level for one member of the marriage, and you know, a more independent for the other one,
Yeah,
right?
keeping the family together, but then keeping everybody safe and well cared for as well.
And I think that's important, keeping everybody safe and well cared for, and that's important. And this new renovation will enhance our ability to do that, right?
Exactly, yep.
Absolutely. I also understand that one of the key things here, and a term that has been used many, many times, is right sizing. We will be right sizing our healthcare facilities. What does that mean?
Oh, I think that means, you know, having more of some aspects that we're seeing more need in, more rooms, more space for people that we have more need, more memory care maybe, as that kind of need continues. I think they're going to maybe some less of the rehab, more of the long-term care, and less, I think, assisted living rooms too. I think will there be the 2 floors instead of the 3, and I think that is going to be important as well.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong on that. Is there going to be 3 floors of these? It kind of goes back and forth.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's going to be at least 1 full floor of memory care,
Yeah.
potentially overflow.
Right.
And then
That's
there will be
overflow, yeah.
at least 1 full floor of skilled nursing,
Right.
but there may be overflow between nursing and rehab.
And that's the beauty of having it all in one building. It's that
Exactly.
capability. Yeah.
Exactly. And of course, then our CAC will be on floors 1 and 2.
It's going to be more flexibility.
Yeah,
there.
exactly. Great, great. Well, you know what? It's time to take a look at last week's 3 questions.
Okay.
All right. Now this one, you're probably going to get the answers, so you should feel free to let me know what the answers are. In the second half of our show, we pose 3 new questions.
Okay.
Now I know that you are a trivia buff, so we're going to see just how well you do on this. I think you're going to do very well. Second half of the show with the 3 new questions, I can't have you shout out the answers.
Okay.
Because we want the residents to, you know, let me know if they know the answers.
Okay.
There's actually 2 ways for residents to get their names mentioned. One is to provide me with questions that I use on the show.
Okay.
The second is to call in with correct answers. And I've mentioned names in the past. Susan Comstock has been on here. My wife, Mary Beth, has gotten her name on the show a couple times. So here we go. We talked last week about camels.
Okay.
Okay? The even-toed ungulate in the genus Camelus. Talked about the fact that it's actually the national animal of what country? Do you know?
Egypt.
No. Close though.
Okay.
It is Middle Eastern.
Israel.
Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, yeah, but that wasn't the question from last week. There was a point in time when camels were so prevalent in Saudi Arabia that Saudi Arabia, as a revenue stream, was able to export them. and they established a very strong relationship with Australia.
Okay.
Because Australia at that time was very much a backwoods country. Camels are food. Their hides are used for clothing.
Yeah.
They're also a means of transportation.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a herd animal. And so it worked very well in Australia. Times have changed.
Okay.
Saudi Arabia no longer exports camels. And in fact, they have to import camels.
Oh,
because
wow.
camels have become such a mainstay of their everyday existence that they can't do without them now. But again, it's a food source, it's a clothing source, it's a livestock. Where does Saudi Arabia import their camels from? That was last week's question number 1. Where does Saudi Arabia import their national animal from?
Is it Australia?
Yes! Very good! The situation has reversed.
Have turned.
I know. Camels went to Australia, now Australia ships back.
Wow, that's just
Isn't that
how
amazing?
karma works, right?
Yeah, it is. And that's all in less than a century.
Wow.
Actually. I had a question several weeks ago. In the 1850s, a Australian rancher let loose 24 rabbits in Australia with the hopes of creating a game, a game animal, something that hunters could go out and shoot. What he forgot was that there are no predators in Australia that are natural to... How many rabbits are in Australia today?
In the entire country?
Yeah, from 24.
From just the 2,000, because they're not native to Australia?
No, they're not. They're not, and
Oh
nobody's
my
brought in
gosh.
anymore. It all started with the 24. It's over 220 million rabbits
I was
today.
going to say like a couple million, but 220 million.
220 million!
I'll never forget that number.
There you go. Question number 2. Something everybody uses every day. You probably unpack things every day with it. Bubble wrap.
Bubble wrap.
Bubble wrap.
It today.
Yeah. It's a pliable, transparent plastic material used for packing fragile items. Everybody knows about bubble wrap. I love it because you can sit there with it in your hands.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So stressful.
Yeah, it's like a stress ball, and it's a good sound as well, right?
There'll be a lot of that around after the Amazon Prime days today and yesterday.
There you go. You know, and actually people think that bubble wrap is a trademark, but it's only a generic trademark.
Okay.
By Sealed Air Corporation. In 1957, 2 inventors named Alfred Fielding and Mark Chavanis actually created bubble wrap.
Okay.
They didn't realize that it was going to be a packing material at that time.
Oh.
They invented it for a completely different use.
Oh gosh.
What was the original use that Alfred Fielding and Mark Chavanis anticipated for bubble wrap in 1957?
Was it for stress relief? Sometimes I want to wrap my residents in it to make sure that they're safe.
Nope.
What was it?
You're not going to give me one yes? Give me one yes at least. You can get this if you really try.
Was it to sit on for comfort? I don't know.
Well, you're right in that it's completely far-fetched from what bubble wrap is currently used for. But it was not to sit on. Bubble wrap was originally invented as wallpaper.
Interesting. There was some really interesting. It was in the 70s?
It was in 1957.
Yeah.
It did not catch on. And that's why they started to use it for something else, and it became packing material.
Go figure.
Go
figure.
figure.
You put this on your wall and you pop it, and then it's just some deflated bubble wrap.
You know, back in the 50s.
I won't be able to resist.
You'd be at home and pop, pop. You know, pretty soon you just have plastic on the wall. Wouldn't be bubble wrap anymore. It would just be wrap.
That's probably why it didn't catch on.
That's probably why it didn't catch on.
Willpower like me.
That is correct. That is correct. That was question number 2. Question number 3, we talked about Vincent van Gogh.
Okay.
Vincent van Gogh, born March 30th, 1853, passed away July 29th, 1890, actually took his own life.
Yeah.
A Dutch impressionist. Everybody knows the story about him cutting off his ear in a fit of psychotic rage.
Yeah, he sent it to his ex-girlfriend, right?
There's actually a bit of truth in that, but no.
Okay.
He sent it to a madam
Oh, man.
Yeah, that he was familiar with in Paris. So apparently there really isn't truth. He was trying to impress a young lady, but he did send it to a young lady for gosh only knows why.
He owed money.
No. Trying to create wallpaper.
I'm a starving artist. Here's my
Could be. He actually drifted in and out of ill health and solitude. But he addressed some of that by taking a painting in 1881. He became a very good friend of Paul Gauguin and Emile Bernard. Actually, he was very, very good friends with them, but he wasn't necessarily always close to them. You know, there were feuds back and forth and stuff like that. Now, of course, one of the most famous painters of the modern era, the quasi-modern era. You know, you can go back and talk about the Michelangelos and the Da Vinci's, but in the quasi-modern era, probably one of the most famous. How many pictures did Vincent van Gogh sell in his lifetime?
In his lifetime, when he was alive?
Yep.
Ooh, I know it's a lot lower than
he did over 2,100 artworks, by the way.
But I know that a lot of them gained popularity after his death. So
landscapes, still lifes, portraits, self-portraits.
When he was alive?
Committed suicide at age 37, did 2,100 artworks. 860 were oil paintings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you know when after he died, they went through all of his oil paintings and a lot of them were kind of stuck together because the oil didn't dry before he put them in his, you know, the...
He just racked them out.
Yeah.
You know, he did all of it within a 10-year time frame.
Was it like 100 or something incredibly low like that?
It is an incredibly low number.
No,
it truly is. Not quite that low.
6.
1. It was 1. Van Gogh, now one of the most celebrated and widely known painters in history, but when he was alive, wasn't recognized for his talent. He only successfully sold a single painting in his life. But of course...
That's why he was paying people in body parts.
See, there you go.
Yeah. It all checks out now.
You could argue that the memory of Van Gogh has had the last laugh. Starry Night, his most famous painting, arguably. What do you think it sold for the last time it went to auction?
Oh gosh, a couple $100 million probably.
Very good. It was $100 million.
$100 million.
A man who sold one painting in his entire life.
Wow.
So there you have it.
Did you see what just happened in the Mona Lisa?
No. What?
Someone was protesting and threw cake at it.
Cake?
Yeah.
Let them eat cake.
Let them. Well, their thought process. The point of it was it was at the Louvre, yeah. And security wasn't as fast as the cake thrower apparently, but there's
cake flies
it was a spectacle, yeah. And
I
guess they wanted it to be. They were saying something to the effect of like climate change. They were making a statement about like how people cherish these works of art, but they don't cherish the earth. And so they were like, I don't know what good that did, but they threw cake at this. I don't typically waste cake.
Yeah, I don't typically waste it either. As you can see, I try not to. I try to lead by example. You know, I try to value the things. Is that
why you bring in the donuts?
Yeah, I try to value the things that people do for me. So, you know. Well, there you have it, folks. Those are the answers to the three questions from last week. We're going to come back in the second half of the show with 3 questions for the coming week. And we'll visit a little bit more with Gretchen. So hurry on back, get yourself a little brain food. We've got some real teasers for you in the second half. Maybe a cup of coffee and a donut. Gretchen and I are going to be right here.
Yes, sir. There's an old member dropped by, sir. Same handicap as yours. I wondered if you'd rather play with him.
Where is he?
Mr. Bond,
Yes?
this is Mr. Goldfinger.
How do you do? How do you do?
You can go straight off. The first tee is clear.
Fine.
I'll get Hawker to caddy for you, Mr. Bond.
Well, that'll be splendid. Shall we make it a shilling a hole?
Mm-hmm.
I'll take some teas.
Yes, of course.
Oh, you must excuse our job, Mr. Bond. He's an admirable manservant, but mute. He's not a very good caddy. Golf is not yet the national game of Korea, eh? meeting is not a coincidence, eh? What's your game, Mr. Bond?
My game?
You didn't come here to play golf.
Welcome back to the second half, everybody. I'm the Quizmaster, Mike Brever, and I have my wonderful, very special guest host today, Gretchen Schumacher. Gretchen, I know that you are a regular player of trivia, actually.
Yeah.
You told me you had a very special question from last night. What was it?
So one of the questions that I can think of off the top of my head was regarding U.S. presidents. Do you know which U.S. president served in both World War I and World War II?
Oh, boy.
I got this one right.
I'm going to guess Dwight Eisenhower.
You're right.
Oh,
Nailed
there
it.
you go.
I'm so upset I'm not going to be able to go to trivia tonight, actually.
Why? Oh, you're going to miss it.
Yeah, I'm going to a wound education dinner in Brookfield.
Oh my
so
gosh, you're a
that's-
slave to your job, aren't you?
I
Trivia or wound education? Which is it going to be?
Well, hopefully next week there'll be some questions about wounds and then it'll all pay off.
You know, maybe on Relias. You know, maybe you can zip right through the training next time.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Now,
Absolutely.
when you get training like this, do you have to train our employees on any of this?
Yeah, so it's about a new technology that they're using for wound healing, and it's actually really crazy when you see like the before and after pictures. You know, the wounds will have lots of dead tissue that they need to, usually they would surgically debride that, and it causes issues. So this is a new kind of like wound vacuum kind of thing that they kind of already
Really?
use, but this one instills fluid into the wound and helps to get rid of that necrotic tissue without having to put somebody under the knife. So it's crazy when you see like a wound like 3 days later after using this machine, and it's like just comes along beautifully.
Really?
It enhances speeds the healing time up like times 10.
And what about burns? Would it work on that as well?
Yeah, I mean, if there was enough tissue loss and then they had some tissue that wasn't really viable tissue anymore, it would help get rid of that old tissue so that the good tissue can take over. I always kind of compare it to like a flower. You know, you want to take off all the dead, prune the dead leaves
Yeah,
off of
right.
it so that they don't take nutrition from the good leaves.
Yeah.
So same thing, you want to get rid of all the tissue that's not going to be good anymore so that doesn't take away nutrition from the good tissue. We're just big plants. Humans.
I guess. We're all just big plants.
Yeah.
All right, okay. Tell us a bit more about yourself. I know you just bought a house within the last year, right?
Yeah.
And where is that? In the neighborhood here or
It's
somewhere
down
else
by
in
Miller
Milwaukee?
Park.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right. And they call that, what is, Storybrooke? What's that
Yeah,
neighborhood?
a little bit south of there by Jackson Park, kind of
Oh.
towards St. Luke's, but yeah,
Yeah.
the neighborhood is Jackson Park.
I actually grew up there, you know.
Really?
I did. I grew up on 29th and Hayes. I used to walk to Jackson Park to go swimming in the summertime.
Oh,
And that's
I
where
love
we
that.
had our 4th of July fireworks.
Oh, what a small world. I'm on 20 or 45th, not 20.
So are you a member of the Jackson Park Neighborhood Association?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good for
Yeah,
you.
took part in the the Halloween festivities.
Sure.
They really do Halloween big there. They block off all the streets.
I know.
It was incredible.
I'll tell you though, Milwaukee really is a very big, small town.
It is.
And
I
it's
call it
because-
Milwaukee.
Yeah, and it's because Milwaukee is really not a metropolis of 690,000 people.
Right.
What it is
All these
a
little
metropolis of
neighborhoods.
about 40 neighborhoods.
Yep.
And you happen to live in one of the most contiguous neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And it's very close knit. It's
Yeah.
a real sense of community at
Yeah.
Jackson Park. Yeah.
Ashley Drummond, our director of nursing, actually dog sat for me while I was out of town last week.
Okay.
And it was so funny. She's like, oh my gosh, because she walked around the block. She's like, everybody in your neighborhood is so friendly. And everybody kept coming out and be like, are you dog sitting for Gretchen? And she's like, do you know your entire neighborhood? And it's just funny because everybody has dogs. Most of the people I know is like, oh, that's Sam's mom and dad. You know, like I know all the dogs' names, but I don't know the human names as well.
See, and where I grew up on 29th and Hayes,
Yeah.
there were about 60 homes on my block.
Mhm.
About 45 of them were duplexes.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, the owner lived in the lower, and they rented out the upper.
Yep.
If you go to that same block today, they're all investor-owned.
Single family.
And there are about 90 renters that
Wow.
live there. And although it's a wonderful neighborhood, you don't have that bonding because renters can come and go in a period of 24, 36 months, and the neighborhood turns over all the time. Your neighborhood those are all single-family homes, and people are there for an extended period of time.
Yep.
And a sense of community really gets fostered with that. Yeah, it's just wonderful, and that's a great park you have by you.
Oh, yeah.
Jackson Park. I love that.
Great
park.
farmers market on
Yeah.
Thursdays.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This neighborhood swimming pool was there when I was growing up. The ball fields were there. Actually, you don't know this because it doesn't exist anymore. But I could walk from 29th and Hayes to Jackson Park by only crossing 3 streets
Wow.
because of the cemetery on Forest Home
Yep,
Avenue.
Forest Home
So
Cemetery.
you'd walk up from Hayes to Forest Home and go right down Forest Home. And then when you got up to 34th Street, there was a company there that made large pipes
Yeah.
for sewer systems. We called it Pipe Town because they were all over there. And you could
Clever.
cut, you could cut over to Jackson Park without ever going over 35th Street. Walk under the viaduct. It was great.
That was great.
So how did being a homeowner suit you?
I like it. You know, there's obviously I've actually owned a home before.
Okay.
I bought a home when I was 21 in Wausau.
But you're only
That's where I grew
25 now.
I know.
It's hard to believe. Hard to believe. So you grew up in Wausau?
Yep, I grew up in Wausau, which is a very small town. That's the kind of town where if you go to the grocery store, you will see somebody you know.
But it's the home of Wausau Homes.
Yes, Wausau Homes, Wausau Tile. If you look at Wausau Paper, if you look at the paper dispensers in most of the
Did they
bathrooms,
have
it's
bubble
all
wrap?
paper.
Was that it?
You know, I'd have to look into that, but I wouldn't be surprised. If you look at
Maybe.
the planters outside, they all
Yeah.
say Wausau Tile on them.
Really?
Mhm.
I had no idea.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so your family worked at one of those big manufacturing plants?
No, my dad is a sales guy. He was a real estate agent. He does
Okay.
not have calluses on his hands.
Okay. So where'd you get your nursing background from?
My grandma was a nurse. She
Okay.
actually pinned me. There's a pinning ceremony the night before you graduate, and she got to pin me with my aunt, who a lot of you might know my aunt Donna Molberg. She worked here for 33 years.
Okay, so
So-
you're a legacy.
I'm a legacy. Well, we
Wow.
were actually the only 3 nurses in the family, though. I was surprised when my grandma passed away a couple of years ago. Donna and I did a nightingale ceremony that you do for nurses that have passed on,
Yeah.
and then you invite all the other
That's
nurses
really
up.
sweet.
And it was a huge funeral. There were tons of people there, right, you know, for my grandmother's funeral, and not a single other nurse. It was just Donna and I, my grandmother.
Unbelievable.
But yeah, it was-
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, where'd you go to school?
North Central Technical College.
Okay, and where is that?
It's in Wausau.
Okay.
So I owned the house there. I went to nursing school. I graduated from high school a little early, and then I got my associate's degree. I became a registered nurse. I just turned 22
Okay.
when I was a registered nurse.
You know, when I worked at Milwaukee PBS, our license was held by MATC. So
Okay.
I was an MATC employee. I'm telling you, our technical colleges here in Wisconsin
Oh,
are
yeah.
second to none.
Yeah.
They are absolutely
And that's a great
fabulous.
nursing school up there. It's the Dave Obey School of Nursing.
Yeah.
And very high tech, actually. Lots of the mannequins that will talk, and there's one that gives birth, which is incredible. I mean, it's super neat. You get a lot of hands-on training, but I think that's the benefit of a tech school is you get that hands-on
You really do. Yeah.
experience.
You,
so.
you really do.
And I worked at the hospital in nursing school too, so I was really at the hospital 7 days a week, and I was kind of a legacy there as well. I had 7 family members at the time that worked there.
Okay.
My aunt, my uncle, my grandma, my grandpa, my mom, and I all worked at the
And
hospital.
I think, I really think that's one of the strengths of technical colleges. They have relationships
Oh.
for people to get internships or some on-the-job training,
Yeah.
which potentially leads to careers when
Yeah.
you graduate.
Yeah.
You establish relationships, you move on, and it all works out well.
Yeah, my first nursing job then was with Aspirus. So that's Aspirus, which is actually one of the biggest companies. They employ the most employees in Wisconsin because they go from Stevens Point, Eagle River area, or Wisconsin Rapids, all the way up to the top of the UP.
Okay.
So they cover a lot of ground. And I worked for the cardiology clinic, and we had a lot of satellite areas around there. So we had patients from Wisconsin Rapids all the way up to the top of the UP.
So you've been at East Castle for how long now?
4 years.
What brings you here when you had all those connections to central and northern Wisconsin?
Well, I enjoyed it, but I wanted kind of more of that big city experience. I love coming down to Milwaukee. I would come down here all the time to visit my aunt. I would come down for the festivals and things like that.
Okay.
And I just wanted to have that experience all year round. You know, I'm a big foodie. I like all the restaurants. I love
Aren't
the
we
east
all?
side.
Yeah. Being a foodie, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had no idea though. I just had my 5th anniversary here.
Yeah.
I started my 5th year. I had no idea we started at the same time.
Pretty much. Yeah, I just had my fourth year anniversary in May.
And mine was, so you started in May of 18?
Mm-hmm.
So you've been here like 2 months longer than me?
Yeah.
Well, there you go, see? And everything is so much better now that we're here.
Yeah, I've heard that.
We're just, turning things around every day. Well, Gretchen, should we take a look at this week's questions?
Yes, please.
Now, you're going to know the answers to
Okay.
these, but I'm going to ask you to please, contain yourself, all
Okay.
right? All right. You know The Wizard of Oz, right?
Yes.
The wonderful, wonderful 1939 film by Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. Judy Garland, of course, Frank Morgan, Ray Bolger, Burt Lahr, Jack Haley, Billy Burke, Margaret Hamilton. Margaret Hamilton suffered second-degree burns.
From the makeup?
Yeah, when she came up from the make-believe fire. Well, it actually was fire.
Oh, that was from the fire. That was a Tin Man that got the chemical burns from the makeup.
Yes.
That wasn't the question.
Actually, it was. But we're going to adapt it just a little bit. We're going to talk. This is actually a first. Gretchen has done something that's never happened before. She anticipated the question, but we're going to go off in a different direction.
Oh my God.
That's what we're going to do. We're going to go off in a different direction.
I told you I'm good at trivia.
There you go. But we're gonna switch it a little bit. Maybe you don't know, but I appreciate the fact that you did that because it keeps me on my toes. But it actually was one of the very first Technicolor movies.
Yes.
Everybody loved it. It broadcast on television in 1956, CBS, and of course it just took on a whole new life at that point in time. We know that it really put Judy Garland on the map.
Yeah.
It was the very first movie that really did it for her. And then after that, she did the Andy Hardy movies and all the rest of that. And of course, she wasn't originally supposed to be in The Wizard of Oz. You know who they really wanted initially, right?
No.
Shirley Temple.
Well, you could have made that the trivia question.
I could have, but I now she's trying to be the quiz master.
First, they're gonna know who to call.
Very good. That's true. If Mike can't do it, we'll just call Gretchen. The Wizard of Oz, of course, has become almost iconic because of all the quotes that people have from. I don't think we're in Kansas anymore and stuff like that. But you bring out a very, very good point. We were talking about Margaret Hamilton burning, and I believe it actually set back production like 2 months.
Yeah.
And actually production was also set back initially because Victor Fleming was the producer, but Gone with the Wind was going on at the same time, and Gone with the Wind was having monumental problems. And they took him. They took Victor Fleming and they brought in someone else to finish it. So it really was a fascinating story. However, you point out the fact that Margaret Hamilton was not the only person who did in fact have a makeup issue, which led to problems with the script. The second person was in fact the Tin Man. And as a result of this, Ray Bolger became the Tin Man. Who was it that had makeup problems that eventually had to beg off of the movie, which gave Ray Bolger a real opportunity to become famous as the Tin Man? That, my friends, is question number one. What actor had to beg off being the Tin Man because of makeup problems? Question number one. I know you probably know it, don't you?
I don't even know that
You
one.
don't.
No.
When we're done and we're off
Okay.
air, I'll tell you. You know the person.
Good, because I won't be able to sleep otherwise.
You know the person. Now we're going to take a little bit of a look at crime history.
All right.
Al Capone. Alphonse Gabriel Capone, born January 17th, 1899, passed away January 25th, 1947. very, very famous Chicago mobster. Really, you know, became famous and got his start because of Prohibition. He was the one who took over the Chicago mobs and brought liquor in from Canada and sold it. Quite honestly, however, he was smart enough to realize that by the mid-30s, Prohibition wasn't going to be there forever. And all this revenue that the mob was taking in was going to go away because bars would open, distilleries would be legal again. He started looking for ways to modernize his crime syndicate. Some of it was by trying to get into people's good graces. He actually was an extremely philanthropic person. Became known as a modern-day Robin Hood. Stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. Many charities in the Chicago area really depended on him. One of the things that Al Capone did has affected us for the rest of our lives.
You and I?
You and I. We have all benefited from something that Al Capone did as a means to diversify his revenue streams as he anticipated the end of Prohibition. Al Capone did something that has changed retail forever in the dairy industry.
Wow.
What was it? What did Al Capone do that revolutionized the dairy industry in an attempt to diversify his revenue streams? That is question number 2. I know you know the answer to that one, don't you?
I could guess, but I know better by now.
Okay. Well, when the camera's off, I'll ask. We'll see. We're going to go back into television history for our third. We're going to take a look at The Twilight Zone. Wonderful television show. I know you're too young for it, right?
No,
you don't remember it?
I know
you
the
do?
Twilight Zone, yeah.
Probably from reruns, though, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Rod Serling.
Yep, I like it because it's a kind of, they're each standalone episodes, so if you don't have to watch them chronologically.
Yes, exactly.
Nice.
And also, you know, it actually was one of a brand new genre of television shows, science fiction.
Yeah.
Science fiction really wasn't, you know, a moneymaker in the 50s when it started. The original ran for 5 seasons on CBS from 1959 to 1964. Tales of Tomorrow, Science Fiction Theater, The Weird Circle, these were all wonderful, wonderful episodes. He really tried to take a look at social norms at the time and come up with parables, if you will, to teach society something. Much of it was because of the censors. Rod Serling did the original in his 1930s. He was immensely affected by a major news story of that day. And censors forbid him from creating a television story focused on it. And so he came up with the Twilight Zone scenario so that he could teach societal parables instead. What was that major societal story, news story, that actually was a national story, which impacted, and I'll give you a clue, it impacted civil rights. And we still are impacted by it today. That, my friends, is question number 3. So those are our 3 questions. We have a little bit of television history, a little bit of movie history, you know, hopefully a little bit of a fun for everybody, right? There you have it, folks. That's our show for this week. I'd really like to thank all of you for taking the last half hour and spending with us. I know I had a lot of fun. Gretchen, I hope you had a lot of fun too.
I had a blast, yeah.
And I really appreciate you coming on. I had a wonderful time too. Will you come back sometime?
Of course, yeah, I love to.
Excellent,
You know,
wonderful.
they have a nickname for me in the health center. They call me Grugel.
Grugel.
Yeah, because if they ever have like a random question, a little random trivia question, oh, what year did that movie come out? They'll always just come and ask me.
They'll go to Grugel. Find out what Grugel knows about it. Okay. Well, I'd also like to thank the president of ECTV, Tyler Gudex, our executive producer, Stacy Abbott. I'd like to thank my producer and editor, Scott McFerrin. I've said many times, if there's anything you like about the show, his fingerprints are all over it. And I know you don't get to see what all goes on behind the scenes, but when the camera goes off, he comes on and he makes it a show. So there you have it. That's our show for this week. As we sign off, though, I ask you, our viewers, to remember the very, very famous words of the recently departed Betty White. Did you know Betty White?
Personally, no.
Well, not personally, no, but you know of Betty White,
Yes.
right? Golden Girls, the Mary
Oh, yeah.
Tyler Moore Show. Really, really, just a wonderful, wonderful actress. One of my favorite acting things for her was The Proposal.
Oh yeah, that was cute.
She is that movie.
Yeah.
If you ask
Yeah. Oh
me.
no, if she wasn't in it, I wouldn't have liked it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
She really is it. Well, she passed away earlier this year, 2 weeks shy of her 100th birthday.
Yeah.
Just a real tragedy, but she had a wonderful life.
Oh yeah.
Later in life, she became very famous for the words of wit and wisdom that she would share with people when they came to her. And one of her most famous is one of my favorites. It's that she highly recommended that you all get 8 hours of beauty sleep nightly. Unless, of course, you're ugly, in which case she recommended you get 9. There you have it, everybody. That's our show for this week. I'll see you next week.